I had 370 developers. Today I've got 100. We've got about 160 AI agents. We are accomplishing 20% more. We had a company and they paid for this agentic system. The day after it was deployed, they were able to fire over 300 employees and save $2.8 million a month. And it cost them 18 grand to do that. My daughter, she's 14 years old, never coded in her life. In 2 months, she built a piece of software that I would have charged $80,000 to build. And it cost her 60 bucks.
Ruh.ai is not just a chatbot, it is a scalable platform where users can build teams of intercommunicating AI agents for tasks like investor research, email writing, workflow automation, and more, all managed through natural conversation.
What I built with it, just as like an experimental thing, is an agentic system that goes out and raises money for you. I gave it a list of 20,000 investors. There's a board of agents that at this digital roundtable, we're currently converting that into like our prospecting agent. My AI looked at your show and said, "Hey, Jesse, you ought to be a guest on the show." It found you and reached out. The copywriters then figure out the best subject line. What's the best hook? What's the best information that I can give this person to get them to...
All right, everybody, welcome to the 23rd episode of the AI Space Podcast. I have Jesse Anglen from Ruh.ai. Jesse, what are we going to cover on this episode?
Man, first off, thanks for having me. So we're going to go over digital labor. We're going to talk a little bit about philosophy because it's hard to make me not talk about the philosophy of how this affects the world. We're going to talk about what it looks like to get to be an entrepreneur in a world where AI is as prevalent as it is and how it's a massive advantage for people. What it looks like to do digital value creation and who knows what else is going to come out of it.
That's awesome. Everybody make sure to tune into the episode. It's going to be awesome. All right, everybody, welcome to the AI Space Podcast. AI isn't just the future. It's a force rewriting the rules of business, wealth creation, and society. If you're a founder, innovator, or technologist, this is the AI show for you. The question you have to ask yourself is, will I blaze a path, follow the crowd, or be left in the dust? This is the 23rd episode, and we're thrilled to have Jesse Anglen, founder at Ruh.ai. Ruh.ai is an operating system for digital labor that leverages agentic AI to automate and augment business workflows. Ruh.ai is not just a chatbot, it is a scalable platform where users can build teams of intercommunicating AI agents for tasks like investor research, email writing, workflow automation, and more, all managed through natural conversation. Jesse built Ruh.ai to let users transform repetitive business processes into efficient, AI-driven operations, enabling greater creativity and productivity in the workplace. His practical approach and public advocacy focus on using AI to augment human potential while fostering authentic human connection in the age of automation. I'm Sanjay Kalluvilayil, founder and CEO of Stonehouse Advisors, your trusted advisor for AI founders and businesses focused on go-to-market strategy and execution. Jesse, first of all, welcome on the AI Space Podcast. We jump right in to highlight game-changing insights that help founders drive innovation and scale business initiatives. What do you see as the hottest trends in AI?
There's a bunch of them, but the one that I am most familiar with and the one that I'm most passionate about is digital labor, and converting human value creation into digital value creation. I personally think that over the course of the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to see like fundamental global changes in how human beings actually create value. So in my opinion, that is the hottest trend in AI.
Totally agree with you. And what do you see as a little bit in the longer term, medium to longer term? What do you see coming out of that?
It depends on whether or not you want to be a philosopher or a technologist. But from like as a philosopher, all of human existence has been about value creation, like forever. You go read any history book, and whether it's a war that's been fought, a product that's been created, it doesn't really matter. Like human endeavor, all human effort is moved towards value creation. You know, how do we make people's lives easier and create more value for less money, right? So that more people have better lives. I think that is going to be the trend. Like in my mind, AI really is the beginning of our ability to hit an API endpoint and create value, right? Something that human beings think is going to make their lives better. And I think that's what AI is going to be, especially when you start getting the robotic side into it. It's going to become a force multiplier for value creation long term.
No, you're absolutely right. If you look at the earliest humanity, right? When we harness fire and stones, the thing that separates humanity is really our ability. If you look at archaeologists, where they look at what tools were used, what was the level of their art, right? And then you go beyond that, right? And I think AI is that next level of tools and art that can help us get to the next level. And then, when you talk about value creation, we're all allocated scarce resources, whether it's a tribe or whether it's a founder, or, whether it's capital, people, talent, time, energy. And how do we best use that? Are we creating value or destroying value at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, that is humanity. I mean, if you go read history, like that's what we've been doing forever.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some other stuff like people want power and different things along those lines, but think about who we put in power. It's those who promise us the most value creation. Who do we let run our biggest corporations? It's those who promise the most value creation. Who do we let work on our car? It's the person who promises the most value creation, right? It all boils down to that in the end.
No, you're absolutely right, because people can be unhappy or unhappy with Elon Musk's $1 trillion package, right? But they wouldn't be paying that unless he's making 10 to 100x of that, right? So he's
Yeah.
only getting a fraction of the value that he's creating at the end of the day, right?
Yeah. Did CEOs make a lot of money because CEOs are the spearhead of value creation? Like if they sucked at it, they wouldn't have their job. And so they make a lot of money because they create a lot of value for lots of people.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that depends if the corporation actually pays them for that, right? But that's a different story. So what do you see as
Yes.
the top AI strategies to grow and scale a business?
In my opinion, there's only one thing I've ever seen work scale any business. Business is a successful business is almost always 90% storytelling and 10% execution. And so for me, in another business that I own that we're not going to talk about too much, although it'll probably come up, I've been in the software development space for a long time, and I've helped launch just over 500 startups in the last we'll call it decade and a half. The winners almost always are really, really good at storytelling. It doesn't really matter on the execution side. Those who are good at storytelling win. And so I think you have to figure out who it is you're telling stories to and how it is you're going to paint a vision and a picture for how their life gets better when they use your product. And that's typically how I think of success in really any enterprise.
I think that's a very important point. Is like there's a lot of folks that build great technologies or focus on the execution, or you have a great strategy. But if the story doesn't come out, are you addressing a pain point that somebody is willing to pay you for on a repeated basis? And if you can't,
Yep.
and if you can't tell that story to convince them to hand over the money,
It
and
doesn't work.
trust you. Well, first they got to trust you. They got to believe you're authentic. You're going to deliver, and then you actually have to
Yep.
deliver and do it on a continuous basis. I mean, that's an
Yeah.
ongoing story, right?
Dude, and if you're really good at telling stories, like what they make documentaries about these people who go out and create startups, raise billions of dollars in funding, all on storytelling, because there's quite literally 0% execution because there was no product. It was all just a scam, right? Like, I mean, I think that proves out that the most important part of a startup is the ability to tell a really, really good story about what the future looks like. What was the name of that gal who created like the pinprick blood analyzing thing, right? That was going to
Oh
save
yes,
everybody.
yeah, yes, yes, yes.
I can't think of her name off the top
I
of my
can
head,
see
but like,
her.
yeah, dude,
Blonde
100%,
hair,
yeah,
tall, thin frame.
100% storytelling, 0% execution, and she did just fine until everyone found out she couldn't actually, she couldn't actually do anything with the story that she told. But uh, that is where, I mean, stories like that convince me that that is the most important part of starting any business.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to think. It popped up in my head. Let's see, it's Elizabeth Holmes.
Yes. Yeah, dude. I mean, so she comes up with this brilliant idea. It doesn't work. And she decides she's going to go tell the story. Now, I don't know if in her mind, like she thought that she was going to be able to build it and the technology would be there, right? But she was an amazing storyteller. At the end of the day, she raised tons and tons and tons of money, right? Which is ultimately what you need to fuel a startup, right? Is capital.
Yeah,
And so if you're
and
good at
it may
telling
have
a
started with
story,
good
everything else
intent.
gets easier. Yeah, it
Yes,
might.
it may have started with good intent, Theranos or whatever. They probably thought, "Hey, we're going to build this out." But this is what happens, I think, when you get into a corporate cycle too. Is like then you get revenue expectations, earning expectations. You got to show reality, right? And that's where we cover in the show later is the ethical and responsible AI and stuff like that. So we'll probably have to get in those kind of aspects too, right?
Yeah, but that's what I mean. In my opinion, the most successful companies that I've seen are ones that are really, really good at telling the world how they're going to benefit or what value it is that they're creating that they can give somebody, right? I mean, it doesn't matter if you're selling like a sponsorship on your podcast. Like, you're going to go and sell the value creation of that sponsorship, and you have to tell a story to me about why it makes sense for me to go and pay you money
Yeah,
to
yeah. You're
sponsor a
not
product
you're
that I
not
have.
you're not buying the sponsorship. You're
Yeah,
buying an expected result. What value would Jesse get out of it by partnering or
yeah,
with the AI podcast or any company, right?
100%. Dude, some of the best products I've ever seen literally never saw the light of day. They're just code in a repo somewhere, because people would spend 500,000 or $1 million developing a piece of software that's absolutely epic and then never tell anyone about it. And they think, if we build it, they will come. Like, that is the biggest lie in in all of entrepreneurial history, at least, because if you build it, they will not come. The truth is, there's more evidence that if you don't build it but tell people you're going to, they will come, than if you build it, they will come.
Yeah, we actually talked about that on an episode with Joe Apfelbaum, who went from being a rabbi to an AI entrepreneur slash guru. He went through that same scenario. He built these websites, nobody's coming. He had to figure out SEO and then do other things to transform that business. So let's take a step back. First of all, welcome, Jesse. Could you tell us a little bit more about your background? What led you into this foray into AI and your path to Ruh.ai?
Yeah, I'll keep it short, and then you can dig in wherever you find it interesting. But I have a humble beginnings story. My dad was a carpenter. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. The thing that kind of defined my childhood was that I hated school. It was boring. Like, just it was one of the most. It was just horribly boring. When I was like 13 years old, I told my mom I'm done with school, and she's like, "Well, you can be done with school when you finish 12th grade." And so I'm like, "Okay, well, challenge accepted." So I took a year and was homeschooled, so I could do this. I took a year, got all the way through 12th grade, um, graduated when I was 14 and a half, and then got out into the workforce. Started working construction because my dad worked construction, seemed to make sense. My first boss, man, he was just an idiot. I just thought, man, there's so many ways that this guy could be doing things better. And this is coming from a 14-year-old kid. And so I worked with him for a while, and when I was 17 years old, started my first company in the construction industry. Worked in that space for quite some time. Eventually thought, this is crazy. Like, I live in northern Idaho. It's 17 below zero in the winter time. It's 114 degrees in the summer. Like, construction, this is not the place to be working construction. And so I thought, well, you know what I'll do? Instead of building houses, I'm going to go sell them. Get into the real estate industry. Got my first taste of software development there because I had this idea to eliminate buyer's agents from the real estate transaction arena, because they did nothing. Like, that's the first thing I realized after I got my real estate license, is that if you could fog a mirror, you can go be a buyer's agent, right? All you do is fill out paperwork. You're an order taker. You don't negotiate anything. Like, there's just very little work. You show people houses, you fill out paperwork. It's like a secretary. Built a piece of software around that, fell in love with the process, met this guy when I was doing that was this young kid, buying tons of real estate. He was in the software engineering space, very, very successful. Helped him buy a bunch of real estate. And then in 2011, he says, "Hey, Jesse." So I've been helping him with some different software projects that he had. He tells me that he wants to sell $3.5 million worth of cash flowing real estate, and he wants to buy this thing he found online called Bitcoin. I was like, dude, we have to get together at a coffee shop. This is like a terrible, terrible, terrible idea. We get together. I tried to convince him not to do it. And basically just didn't listen to me. Sold all of his real estate. He sold his personal house. Like, he sold his bike. He sold his car. Like, he sold every worldly possession he had. Bought Bitcoin all through, like, in 2000, end of 2011, beginning of 2012. That ended up being a super good decision, on financially on his part. I think he was buying Bitcoin at $3 or $10, or like kind
Yeah,
of that
today,
price
right as
range in
of
there.
today's recording, it's over $122,000 per coin.
Yeah. So if you can imagine, you just have to do the math to realize he didn't do so bad. So eventually, I went to work with him. We hired a bunch of developers because we were going to build decentralized applications and just do something in the blockchain space. And then we learned about this project in 2014 called Ethereum that looked absolutely amazing. Like, you're going to build fully decentralized applications. So started working with their team, to build out some real estate applications on the blockchain. They were going to be amazing. In 2015, when they launched their mainnet, we launched our products. One of them went viral. And then my team of probably 30 blockchain engineers were the only, I had the largest concentration of engineers that knew how to write smart contracts on planet Earth. And so tons of people started coming to us to build out different things over 2015, 2016. And so we built about 100 different startups in the blockchain space that year, him and I together, or over the course of the next couple of years, actually. And then 2018 rolled around, him and I went different directions. I decided that I didn't know what to do. And so I got into consulting, because if you don't know what you want to do for your job, then you go do consulting. And so I started consulting for different blockchain startups. Eventually, I realized the thing that I loved most in the world was helping people build startups. Like I love the idea of doing that. And so I started another company called Rapid Innovation, and we were focused on the blockchain space, helping people build blockchain applications. Did that, helped launch over 400 different blockchain startups. And you roll all the way back to about 3 years ago, the peak of Rapid Innovation. I had 370 developers working for me, living the dream. And I had this guy named Hansel who's working for me. And I noticed that Hansel, so Hansel was an interesting fellow. Number one, he was very wealthy. 19-year-old kid, had made a ton of money in the blockchain space. And he started working for us because he was looking for alpha on new projects, right? He wanted to find projects before they even ever launched their token so that he could invest early and make a lot of money. And so he asked me if he could have a job on our onboarding team, where you would talk to all of the brand new clients that were coming on board. And so his job really was to hear someone's idea, help them develop it, turn it into some sort of written documentation that a developer can go and take a look at and then do something with. And that process takes between 4 and 6 weeks, right, with a brand new client. Well, one day I realized that it's not, number one, he's not really working anymore. Like I don't see him working. I don't see the messages on Slack. Like I just don't see that he's actually doing much. But he's now onboarding clients in like 2 weeks. And I'm like, what in the world's going on with Hansel? So I called him up. I'm like, dude, what's going on, man? Like, I see that you're not working, but your clients are happier than ever. Like this, you've shortened the process by 2/3. Like, what's going on? And he said, oh, I built this amazing thing. You have to see it. He had scrapped together an agentic system, is what we call it today. But he had architected out this system that allowed him to take the transcripts from calls, feed it into it, and it would output all the documentation that he needed. He basically just shortcut the entire process of onboarding a client by a ton. I mean, what we were doing in 6 weeks, he was doing in 2 weeks. And it was in that moment that I realized that AI was going to change the face of the planet with labor. And I became obsessed with the idea that you could create value for human beings digitally. And so we started exploring what it looked like to build agentic systems and build digital labor. Fast forward a little bit, ChatGPT 3.5 comes out, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the coolest thing that I've ever seen in my entire life. Like human beings have never invented anything this transformational before. I thought it was going to be bigger than the internet. Like really, really, I mean, if anything fueled my obsession, it was that. And then as we started, implementing the newest technology that came out to build better and better agents, agentic systems, architectures, and all of that stuff, we started reducing our headcount because somebody on our team would be like, hey, I found another job. It's like, sweet, go for it. And then we would replace them with digital labor. And so over the course of the next 3 years, our headcount started to shrink. And today I had 370 developers that work for me then, or team members. Today I've got 100 in that company. We've got about 160 AI agents that are working inside that company on a daily basis doing work. And we are accomplishing 20% more than we were when I had 370 people, with a lot less headaches, and a lot more profitability. And so through the process of doing that, we developed a lot of interesting ideas for how to actually do real valuable human work through digital intelligence and digital labor. And then that eventually turned into this idea for a product that is now Ruh, where we are allowing other people to begin, building those systems inside their own company and deploying them. The end.
So
That's the shortest version of the story.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. So tell us, what exactly is your role at Ruh, and then the vision, mandate, etc.
Yeah, so I'm the CEO, so I kind of provide vision, direction, all that stuff.
And
I
you're the
am
founder also, right?
Yeah, and founder. And I'm a co-founder. I've got another guy that he's the brains behind the outfit. Like if you actually want to talk to someone who's really smart, and you'd have a conversation with him. If you want to talk to somebody who's got his head in the clouds because he's thinking about what the world looks like 10 years from now, then you talk to me. Dude, the vision is really, really simple. We will live in a world one day where you pull up whatever large language model it is that you're using, right? And I hope that it's Ruh. And you say, hey, listen, I need somebody to help me curate my emails. I get way too many emails. I want to have like drafts written. And you basically give a job description of like a personal assistant to Ruh. And Ruh says, awesome, let me go build that for you really fast. And because it already has access to your life, right? It has access to your email. It has access to all the things that you know, like your external knowledge base. It's able to then go and build the workflows, understand what your priorities are and your goals are because it knows you, and then deploy that labor into your life, right? And so now all of a sudden, 15 minutes later, you have an assistant that's managing your emails the way that you want to manage your emails, doing all the things you want to do. If you need a project manager, you say, hey, like, I need a project manager that can go and look at all my Jira tickets and make sure that all the developers on these projects are doing all the things that they're supposed to do. And this is what that looks like. You give it to it, it builds it for you, you deploy that into your business. And so the long-term goal of what Ruh is doing is to create a system where with just natural language, i.e., I say, here's a need that I have. Ruh then goes out, builds the solution to that need that you have for labor, and then deploys it into your business. And so I think that most labor is going to be this in the future, in the same sense that, like, did you see the Anthropic demo the other when they released 3.5? Opus, not Opus, is it?
No, I was
Sonnet
not able to. I think I was
4.5.
traveling. I
So
was
in
traveling, and then I had to get the last episode.
dude, one of their demos is really fascinating. So they and I've envisioned this world for a long time. They take a large language model that understands how to interpret like human instructions into actual compiled machine code. They then create an operating system that allow people to move the mouse around and do all that stuff. When you click on an icon, nothing is actually behind that icon. Like the only thing that the large language model understands and knows is all of the data. You click on that icon and all of a sudden it populates the UI for you in real time. And it tells you what it is that you want to see. If you want to adjust it or change it, then you just adjust it and change it, right? Like it's a living, breathing piece of software that is completely conformed to what your needs are. If you click learn more, there is no one's built anything behind the learn more. It doesn't exist. You click learn more, it builds it for you, shows you the data in real time. You start making adjustments in real time to what you need. Like I think this idea of getting what we want when we want it because we say we want it is the reality that is going to be realized because AI exists, and because that is like I think that is digital labor at work, right? Like I don't like the way this app is on my phone. Hey phone, I don't like how you're doing this. Please change it. Do this instead. And then 3 minutes later, you have a unique, completely different app than anyone else that's doing something completely different than anyone else, right? Like that's another form of digital labor because it's the kind of labor that you'd pay a human being to do, but now the AI is just doing it for you in real time, so you get what you want. So like that's what I see as the future, and that's ultimately what it is that we're working towards.
No, that's cool because how I apply it in my podcast. I have people that help me with it in terms of editing and getting some stuff done. But even on the thumbnails, I'm doing QA and on the imagery and the video. And sometimes it's not what I want. And then like on a thumbnail, I'm trying to explain to them. I'm like, okay, you know what? I'll just go prompt it. I'll prompt it into ChatGPT or something, or put it into some sort of image creation type thing. And I'll create it and show them this is what I want. Boom. Or I go in, there's an AI B-roll thing and they're not getting the B-roll that I want. And I'll prompt it. Boom. This is it. And a lot of times, and these are like experienced video editors, and the stuff that I'm creating is way more visually creative and dynamic than what they're producing, and it's coming out of my head and it's unlocking some creativity where it's so hard to describe to them, and they never get it right. But now it's like this is what I want, and it's like okay, wow.
Yeah, Like 100%. That is digital labor, and I think that as we continue to move towards this world, like it's more than digital labor, because labor is a means to an end, right? Like the reason people labor is to create value. Like it doesn't get more complicated than that. And so digital labor, if you cut the means to the end out, is just digital value creation, which is what you're doing. It's value at an API call.
Well, it's kind of like if you're a hunter gatherer, right? Everyone can go hunting, but maybe some people are better hunting than other people. Maybe the one dude's better at making the arrows than actually shooting the arrows, right?
Yep.
So that's when you get into specialization, right? And I think that's where this AI can help us in some of the specialization that take out some of the manual or difficult things, but also unlock some creativity on the human side too, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Do you have any specific target segments or other use cases? What do you see as the evolution of this?
I mean, I can tell you how I'm using. Like, I'm raising money right now, so one of the things that I built with it, just as like an experimental thing, is an agentic system that goes out and raises money for you, or at least it doesn't raise the money for you. It puts meetings on your calendar, right? And so, I gave it a list of 20,000 investors, and it went through and did a massive amount of research on each one of those investors. So it goes through and it looks at everything they've ever posted on social media, all of the podcasts they've been in, every article they've ever published, and every investment they've ever made, or been a part of making. And it says, is this person going to be interested in investing in Ruh based on everything they say, everything they've ever done? If they are, there's a board of agents that all have they sit at this digital roundtable with a stack of Ruh information on one side and then that dossier of investor information on the other. And they say, is this person going to be interested in Ruh? If the answer is yes, then it passes that information off to a copywriting system. The copywriters then say, okay, if that's true, based on everything we know about this person, what subject line do I need to have in an email to get this person to click on it? And so they go through and they try to determine what that is, and they figure out the best subject line. And then once they're done with that, they're like, okay, what's the best hook? Like, what's the best first two sentences that I can write that'll make this person read this email? And so then they iterate through that until they get the best hook. And then they go, okay, what's the best information that I can give this person to get them to actually set an appointment? And it goes through and it does that. And then it starts just emailing people, and following up with them until they set an appointment with me. And then after they're done setting an appointment with me, it gives me the research dossier, says, hey, this is what I've told them so far. This is why I think they're going to be interested in what you're doing. Here's how you need to have a conversation. Your meeting's on Tuesday at 3:00. And so like that's one of the things that I've practically done with it that has just been fun to play around with. Um, we're currently converting that into like our prospecting agent, um, which is going to do just general prospecting. And so like if you're looking for, if you're looking for people to be on your podcast, for instance, you would go and define your ICP and set up your campaign, and then it's going to go out, find those people that you're looking for, do the research on who they are, start communicating with them until they're willing to set an appointment with you. And it just runs in the background, constantly generating leads, as long as you're willing to pay the credits, for token generation.
Where are you in terms of your fundraising? Like, what stage are you in?
A seed round. So I did a pre-seed. I did a pre-seed. It's basically I funded, myself and my co-founder funded the majority of the build. We didn't really start building it until I would say June probably of this year, or something, maybe a little bit before that. May is when we pulled the trigger and said, yeah, we're going to build this product. And so it's all relatively new. But that's the other thing. It's like development is the writing code has changed a lot in the last year and a half. Like the amount of code that an experienced good developer can write when they're AI augmented to do so is, and I'm not joking about this, like at least 1,000x more than what just a human being can sit down and do. And so the amount of work one really good developer can get done in a day can be as much as a junior developer would get done in a year. And so you can now do the value creation there is insane. Now, it's not all that way, and it's only with some stuff. And there's a whole lot of specialized knowledge you have to have in order to make it that effective, and not everyone does. But it is incredible what you can actually do if you're an experienced developer and you understand vibe coding and you understand where all of those processes fit together, like the creation of software is going to become insanely inexpensive. Dude, my daughter built something. So my daughter, she's 14 years old, never coded in her life. Decided this year she might be interested in what dad does. And so I said, "Hey, well, I'll pay for subscriptions for you. You go build out this idea that you have. And if you don't know something, ask, not me. Ask the AI." In 2 months, she built a piece of software that I would have charged $80,000 to build. And it cost her $60. And she learned everything to do it. And she's 14. If that doesn't show you where the world's going as far as like digital value creation is concerned, like I don't know what example I could give you that just convinces you that like the world, the planet is going to fundamentally change.
No, it's interesting. Like, in the 90s, before you had internet native people, you have internet native, digital native, you have mobile native. Now this next generation will be AI native, right? Versus other people trying to jump into it. It's crazy. What about the AI space podcast resonate with you? That, hey, maybe let's be a guest on the show,
Well, to be quite honest, my AI looked at your show and said, "Hey, Jesse, you ought to be a guest on the show." So I could tell you
Oh, wow.
I could tell you what the dossier said on you. Like,
Yeah, I'd love to hear that.
it said that you were
Okay.
well, ultimately, so that particular system, all it's really doing is it's saying, okay, what is the target audience for this particular podcast, and will it allow you to be a thought leader in the space? Are you going to be talking to the kind of people that are actually going to be interested in what it is that you have to say? And it determined that that was true. Like it didn't like you as much as it liked your audience, or your perceived
Yeah.
audience based on your content.
Right.
So yeah, you've built a beautiful audience. I would say that's got to be the
Yeah.
shortest
So,
answer.
so I'm curious. I'll take the constructive because it was months ago when this probably happened because I was very new when you were doing this. So, what did it say? He's a
Well,
newbie.
no, so that
He's
was
in over his head.
no. That was one of the criterias for that was so. I gave it two criteria. I said, number one, I'm not going to pay to be on any podcast right now. Like, just get me on podcasts, but they need to be good. Like, the person needs to be intelligent, and so listen. Like, it goes in. It actually gets the transcripts. It figures out what it is you're saying, what your guests are saying. It's looking for how good you are at asking questions. Like, and I said, like, I want somebody who's like a Rogan or like a Diary of a CEO. Like, find someone who's good like that, but they have to have just started. Um, and so I think it hit my ICP right on the head. Like it found you
Oh,
and
wow.
reached out. I'm curious as to what was compelling about the message when I reached out. Was it just like, oh, here's somebody that would be interested? Because that's the thing that's interesting to me, is that you bought into whatever it sold you on why I should be on this podcast.
Well, the funny thing is, so at the time when I first started this podcast, I was using a different team, right? And so I was doing some reach out on my own. They were doing some reach out, and they had sent out some stuff, but they never actually gave me your material. Then I said, let me revisit what they said, and I looked at all these things because I have a wait list for my podcast, right? And so then I saw your profile. It like hit my eye, and I looked at what you were doing, and I was like, this is the kind of people that I need to have on the show, like people that are building AI agents. Because, I'm working. One of the things, going back to what you said about authenticity and what's real and stories, interestingly, when I started this, people were like, man, there's AI podcasts. Why are you doing a real podcast? I want to talk to people with the real stories that are actually really, really building so other people can have real insights, right? It was a good decision because now, like YouTube and others, they're actually cracking down on AI videos that are just like AI slop, that are just producing stuff. And I think people are actually looking for authenticity, what's real. And then, after I saw your profile, I reached out and, before I learned from experience, I learned to at least vet the guests before I bring them on. And so we had a quick 15-minute conversation. It was supposed to be a 15-minute conversation. I'm very good at keeping it 15 minutes. It went way over 50 minutes. It could have been a podcast, you know? And then I was like, okay, I definitely have to have this guy on board because you have the innovative mindset, the entrepreneurial mindset, and showing that, hey, let's go build and be creative. So just all of it came together because, I mean, and I want to have more people like you. And when they see you, they're like, hey, this is they may not resonate with me, but they'll resonate with you, in terms of the audience, right?
Well, at the end of the day, man, a good podcast. I've seen really bad podcasters interview really amazing guests, and it's terrible. And I've seen really, really good like interviewees or interviewers interview like people who are just kind of boring. I mean, a lot of really smart people are not actually all that fun to talk to. you get the right person asking them questions and digging things out, and man, it gets really interesting. Like I spend a lot of time watching podcasts, way more than I think most people do. It consumes at least 4 hours of every day, just listening to podcasts. Because honestly, if you want to educate yourself, like that's how you get to sit down in front of the smartest people in the world, talking about the thing that they're most passionate about, and have someone dig in for an hour, right? And something comes out with every different podcast that they do, and you can learn. I mean, I think you can get a PhD level education just listening to podcasts, and probably any subject that you wanted to get, that you wanted to learn about. And so, like, I spend a lot of time listening to podcasts. It's listening to podcasts and reading papers. Like,
Well, the interesting thing is when I started this in December of last year, right? Where I am from there to now in my terms of knowledge of AI is exponential. At this point, I'm ready to, in 2026, I got to say it out loud so I didn't do it. I'm going to write a book on AI about all the insights that I've picked up and the future of AI and other things, because it's just a wealth of information. And the cool thing is we're just having conversation, right? And it makes it more interesting. It's not like an interview, right? Where these blocked questions, it's
yep.
a flow. We're vibe podcasting in a sense versus vibe
The
coding,
worst podcasts I've ever been on, and I won't name anybody's names, but the worst podcasts I've ever been on are the ones that are like, let me read this from the script. That question 2, question 3. It's like, man, you could go so far with like what I just said, and instead you're just skipping past it, going on to the next question because it's what you do. It's yeah, dude, it's horrible. They're miserable to be a part of.
The nuggets are in what you're saying. It's your experience, right? And that's what I mean, the reason I'm hungry for that information, right? How do I grow and scale a business? How do I be more successful, right? So, before we continue, I want to invite everyone to follow Jesse Anglen and Ruh.ai. Where's the best place for them to find you?
So you can find me I'm on Twitter, although I don't have much of a following on Twitter. If you find me on LinkedIn, I've got a bunch of followers on LinkedIn because that was the social network that I chose a long time ago, which I don't know why I did. Honestly, I hate LinkedIn. Sorry, LinkedIn, but you suck. So you can find me on LinkedIn. You can also go to Ruh.ai to see what Ruh's up to. So that's just RUH.ai and learn more about what we're doing there. We're going to be launching our first. Like commercially available agent that we've built on the platform this month in October. Probably, I would guess by the time this podcast hits, it'll be out because it's going to be the 8th of October, and I'm assuming we're recording.
Yeah, we're about 2 weeks out.
Yeah, I would guess that is the case. So yeah, by the time you're listening to this, you'll be able to go there and see what we're up to. Sign up. The current plan is to make sure that everyone can try it out for free. Yeah, if you're interested in what the future looks like for digital value creation, definitely go there and check it out.
Cool. Well, definitely follow Jesse, Ruh.ai. We'll have the websites up. Definitely like, comment, subscribe to the AI Space podcast, but that helps us grow the show and have awesome, innovative guests like Jesse. And then also, if you're stuck in your business and you need someone to talk to, there's a link to book a meeting with me, quick 15 minutes, to get your business off the ground. So let's get into the heart of the matter in a sense of, a lot of people like to talk about technology, but I like to start off, what are the critical insights you see around vision, mindset, strategy that's critical for long-term success?
Like the thing that I get accused of the most is having like a IV drip line of hopium, just like that I'm like hooked up to all the time. I get called.
That's the first time I heard that hopium. That's good.
I'm like a hopium addict. And in some ways, I think that that's kind of true. Like I do wake up every single morning just knowing that like things are going to be better than they were yesterday, and things are going to be really good. Sometimes when I look back, especially my biggest failures, I kind of wonder why I was thinking those things. Like, why did I push through that stuff? But I think that that's necessary, because it's interesting. I look at my life where it is today, and I look at, say, my friends from high school, and they're like, man, Jesse, you're so lucky. Like, you've gotten the things that you wanted. Like, you've got some successful companies under your belt. Like, you've done the stuff that you're doing, something that you're passionate about. You have a job that you love. Like, here, I'm working as whatever it is that they're doing, and they call it luck. And I started saying a long time ago that luck is literally just a cocktail of blood, sweat, and tears that you have to drink on a daily basis. And if you drink it enough, you'll get lucky. I think that at the end of the day, like mindset wise, like you have to have a mindset that's like that. I think entrepreneurship, like the desire to be an entrepreneur and the ability to do it, is a curse that I would wish on no one, But if you have it, you have to go
I
do
think
it.
I think Jensen Huang basically says, Nvidia, multi-trillion-dollar company, $3-4 trillion. He basically said the same thing. If he knew what it took to be an entrepreneur,
Oh yeah.
he
Dude, you go do something else. Like, it's terrible. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. It's a horrible thing, because you'll end up working more hours than you ever want to work. You'll have no life. Like, people ask, Jesse, what do you do for fun? Like, I do this for fun. Like, I work. Like, I learn about what it is that I'm passionate about. I can't help it. Like, my brain is just wired to be obsessive about the things that I am passionate about. And so when I think about what I'm like, I don't watch TV. Like, no, I don't. I watch no TV. I watch a movie on Friday nights with my family because they like to watch a movie, and it's one of those things I kind of make myself do because it's family time and it's good. But if I didn't have a family, man, I would have no idea what was going on in popular culture. I wouldn't be following politics. Like, I have no life outside of this passion that I have for trying to get where I'm trying to go, right, and bring the smartest people I can find with me, because I see them as the key to my success. Like, that is what it takes to be an entrepreneur. When I see a lot of people, there was a guy a while back, a prospect of ours, who needed to go out and raise some money because they were running out, and they weren't going to cross the finish line unless they did. And I was like, man, he's like, well, you've raised money. Like, how do you do it? And I said, oh, super, super easy. Find a list of investors, pre-AI, find a list of investors and start calling them. He's like, what do you mean? I said, you find a big list of investors, you get out your phone and you start calling them. He's like, well, how many do I call? I said, well, when do you wake up in the morning? Like, how many can you call between the time that you wake up in the morning and the time that you go to bed? And can you do that every single day until you get the money that you need? Because it's a numbers game. Eventually, you'll find someone that resonates with your vision, that understands what it is you're doing. They'll give you the money and you'll keep going. And you're not going to have to do it forever. You're going to have to do it for, you might find the person on day one. You might fundraise for one day and you'll be fine. And what was crazy is he couldn't do it. And most people can't because they don't
No,
want
you're
to.
absolutely right. And people say just dream it. It's good to have dreams, but if you're not putting the actions behind it each day, and people want the results, but if you got to focus on the right actions, and a lot of times those actions are blood, sweat, tears, and lack of sleep to
Yep.
get the results that you want. And people talk about luck. Yeah, if you put me on people are like, oh, he's so lucky. Michael Jordan made that shot at the buzzer. If you put me at the buzzer, I could probably make one of the shots, out of luck.
Yep.
But to be able to do something repeatedly, boom, boom, boom,
Yeah, that's not
that's
luck.
not accident.
No, that's not luck.
That's
Dude,
not luck.
that's a cocktail of blood, sweat, and tears that he drank every
Yeah,
single day. And now he's consistently lucky. Like, you can tell people
yeah.
who have put a lot of work into the luck because they get lucky a lot.
Well, when he got beat up by the Pistons for 2 years, and then had to go start working out and bulking up, so that way he can. If it wasn't for the Pistons, we would not see the Michael Jordan that we've seen, right?
Yeah, 100%. Dude, the best of everyone has been beat up. Like, and they're
Yeah.
like, you can be genetically lucky. Like, you can be extra smart, but even I don't have that going for me, right? Like, the brain is a muscle too. Like, if you work out your brain, you get smarter. I don't think it was funny. I literally just watched a podcast about this. Like, your brain is literally a muscle that if you continually, that's why if you go spend an entire day trying to learn something, your brain hurts. Like, it hurts. You feel tired, like it's exhausting, like you'll get a headache, like it's hard to learn things. Well, that's just like lifting weights, like, because you're working out your brain. If you do that consistently enough, you get smarter. Like, I don't think people realize, like, that's how this actually works. And
No,
some
you're
people are
absolutely right.
born smart, which is great. Like, some people are born strong. That's great too. But guess what? For the rest
But
of
they're not
us, we have
always
to
the ones
go.
that succeed. It's not the biggest,
Yeah.
strongest, fastest to succeed in humanity. And I've talked about this before too. I forgot the name of the book, but it talks about how you learn. Like, you start, the people that play the piano and they make a mistake, they start all over. They go make a mistake, start all over. They actually get to mastery faster because what they're doing is the neurons are firing, is building myelin, and you're basically creating super highways. And that's what you got to do. That's why some people are able to do, like, so, when you drive sometimes, you're like, why did I go there? Because you went that same way
Yeah.
100 times. Your brain just knows where to go. You're on autopilot. And that's what you got to get to, is like, when you're learning something new, that's why it's hard, because
Well,
you're building a new trail, or building a new road basically in your head.
and when I want to prove to somebody that your intelligence has nothing to do with your success, I usually ask them, like, who's the smartest guy and the smartest living person in the world today? And you know how many people can tell me who it is? No one. In fact, I've never had anyone answer that question correctly. It's this guy named Terrence Tao. He's got the highest IQ of any living person in the world. I think he lives in Australia somewhere, and no one's ever heard of him, even though he's the smartest living human being on planet Earth. It's not Elon Musk, who's super successful. It's not Jeff Bezos. It's not any of these people that you could name off. It's this dude in Australia. And the
Yeah.
reason that I know that intelligence does not equate to success is because if that guy was uber successful, everyone would know who he was, and no one does. And so smarts have nothing to do with it.
Yeah, well, it's also how you measure it because, are they a quiz bowl champion versus a neurosurgeon, right? That's what you got to kind of figure out is like, there's actually, because even when I started being an entrepreneur, I was in corporate for a very long time. I had to unlearn to become a better entrepreneur, and there's a lot of things I could throw out the window. And going back to what you said about media, yeah, I mean, I used to be a big media consumer when I was younger. Now I actually don't, even though I'm doing a podcast, I'm not a consumer of media. I mean, I'm done working. I grab dinner. I go to the gym. I walk the dog, take a shower, sit down for half an hour to an hour with my wife. Maybe I'll flip through some random videos. Then, whatever else I got to do, go to bed. And then, like you said, Friday night, I watch a movie with my wife. I got 2 kids in college now. So I'm not a media consumer because I'm so invested in this. And, of course, I'm into like reading other things like philosophy or books or, the Bible or learning languages. So I'll watch a video on languages or, try to pick up things here and pick up ancient scripts or whatever, but things like that. I'll do fun stuff.
But that's
too,
exercising your brain. Like, I think physical exercise, spiritual exercise, mental exercise, like if you don't do those things, like you can't be successful. I've never met someone like all of the most successful entrepreneurs that I've met. So people I've worked with that now have unicorns, right? People that I've worked with that are even less successful than that. Like their company's worth a couple $100 million, right? But they're successful, more successful than most people, the top 5%. All of those people have one thing in common, and that is they work out mentally. So, like, generally speaking, if I start having a conversation with you, for instance, about World War II, right? Like, which is probably, I don't know for you, but it's not a subject that I know a ton about. Like, I know more than most people. If I wanted to talk to you about something super super obscure, about like, I don't know, in situ
Sumerian
gasification for
civilization,
like oil field stuff, right? Like you could probably carry on a conversation with me because you read and because you work out mentally. If we want to start moving it over into like the metaphysical side of things, we could have a conversation about the Bible, like, and you and I could talk about those things if we wanted. Like, that is if you could do that with someone, the odds are that they have the ability to be successful, especially if they go work out. Because sometimes you can find those like super intellectual people, but then they don't ever do anything to help their body, which I think it really does require all three. And most successful entrepreneurs that I've met that are highly successful, like they work out constantly.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah,
brain
no, when
rot
I started,
scrolling TikTok and
yeah.
Instagram, right?
No, when I used to be like super lean before I got into this full-time entrepreneurial stuff. And so now I'm trying to get back into it. Still in the gym, but I got to get back to my, abs and stuff. That's where I want to get to. But let's get into technology, So in terms of technology stack, what are the platforms? What's your approach on the technology stack, the architecture for Ruh.ai?
So when you're thinking about value creation, the easiest way to think, and I've thought about this way more than most people probably will ever think about it in their lifetime. So if you think about human value creation, uh, you have to parallel human value creation with your digital stack in order to actually create value, right? So if let's say you come work for me, I give you a task, and let's just say you're as dumb as a sack of rocks, right? You're going to fail. Like no value gets created. Hey, go do this thing. You're like, I'm too dumb to do it. No value. So it requires intelligence. So that's number one. And as far as I know, there's only three really necessary, but four things that human beings do to create value. So one is they're intelligent enough to do the thing that they were asked to do that creates value. If I ask my daughter to go put the dishes away and she goes there and knows where all the dishes go, understands the task and pushes the dishes away, like she has created value. So that's number one. Number two is you have to have a memory, right? You can be the smartest person in the world. And if you had no idea where you worked, what your job was, what you were responsible for, how you got your job done, you would still fail at the task. And your intelligence no longer matters at that point, right? And
Well, that's
so,
how I sense some of these LLMs right now. Like
oh yeah,
ChatGPT, there's a thing like it says people know you did ChatGPT if you have like a lot of emojis and M dashes. And I was in ChatGPT and I asked it to do something. It added all these M dashes, and I said, take out, don't put any M dashes. And then said, okay, then it'll continue to do M dashes. I even went to the settings and said, as a prompt, no M dashes. Still producing M dashes.
yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that's it.
Dude,
And it's like, okay,
that's why
it has a memory problem.
you create a macro in this is where you just create a macro in your Google Docs to like always delete all of the M dashes and replace them with just regular dashes. And so that people don't know that what you've created is AI generated. I do that and get rid of all the good formatting. It's like, gosh, human beings don't format stuff like that. But yeah, like that's memory, right? Understanding how things work. And if you don't have it, you're going to fail at your tasks. So that's number two. Now, you'd think if you're the smartest person in the world and you have the best memory of someone in the world and you're given a task, you're going to be able to complete it. But that is not always the case. In fact, generally, it's not the case because the last thing you need, let's pretend you're a graphics designer. And I say, hey, I want you to go design me a logo. And you're the smartest guy in the world. You have the best memory in the world. You understand everything there is to know about creating logos. And I give you no tools. You're not allowed to use a computer. You're not allowed to use a pencil, no paper. You're not even allowed to use your finger and the dust on the back of the window of your car. Right? You still fail because at the end of the day, you have to have tools. And human beings use tools to create value. And if we don't, we build the tools that we need to then create value. Like we have a long history of doing this. Once you have those three things, you can begin to create value. And this, I am getting to the question of the technology stack, but I think this is really important to understand the foundation for it. Because if you don't understand how I'm thinking about it, I think it's almost impossible to understand why we've done what we've done. The last is super intuitive. Like a child could understand this. Let's say that you are the smartest person in the world, best memory in the world of your job, best, like you understand your job, your responsibilities, all that, and you have the best tools in the world. And let's say I'm half of whatever you are, and you have the world's worst process for doing the task that you're given, and I have the world's best process for doing the same task. I would bet on me 10 times. Yeah, like all day long, I'd bet on me because process is a force multiplier for any sort of value creation that you're going to do. Right. And human beings know this. Like we fire really good people. If you own a company and you haven't, you will. You'll fire really amazing people that can't actually stick to a process because that means they can't
I
create value.
recently had to do that with an editing team.
Yeah.
I gave them 2 episodes to do. They didn't have the process. And one other thing, maybe because I boiled down to also like attitude and aptitude. And the other thing was the attitude.
Yes.
Like, I'll give you an example. I had an explainer video to do. It was like an interview test, whatever. I gave them the I did the voiceover. I gave the direction. They had line by line what needed to be done. I get the video. I'm like, there's stuff missing. There's 6 out of 10 stuff on here. I was like, oh, that's part of our artistic creativity. I'm like, okay, you got to follow directions. You can't think you're better than everybody else. And this is like an interview process. And so if they don't have the attitude, they don't want to do the work because they think they're too good.
Yep.
I mean, it's not going to work.
Well, and that's part of process, right? Like what's interesting is with a human being, and most people, like I struggle with this because I've probably hired and fired 1,000 people over the course of the 2 decades that I've owned companies. If like, let's say you came to work with me today as an employee and I give you a process and say, hey, you're my new podcast guy. You're going to start making podcasts for me. And so I tell you, here's our process for making podcasts. Day one, you'll follow the process almost always, unless you make a mistake. But generally speaking, you'll want to. By day 90, the attrition on an SOP is between 60 and 80%. 60 and 80%, which means that if you hire someone new and you tell them how to do their job and you ignore them for 3 months, when you meet with them 3 months later, they're only doing 20% of what you asked them to do. That's part of why I think digital labor is going to kick human labor's butt because we can't compete with that. Like human beings suck at following processes, which is my whole point, right? So it's the 4 pillars, what I call the 4 pillars of value creation: intelligence, memory, tools, and process or workflow, or however you want to think about it. As I was thinking about like how human beings create value, it kind of just really clicked in my mind. Like I need to build a technology stack or an architecture for digital value creation that mimics the same thing. So intelligence, that's easy. Large language models are now smarter than most humans. They're smarter than me. They're smarter than you. Sometimes they don't seem that way.
Well, it depends. It depends on the context. Sometimes I feel like it's a smart intern, or sometimes a fifth grader. Some people are not as smart as fifth graders, but then sometimes it seems to be an
Oh yeah,
expert. It depends on
depends on
what you
what you're
ask it in
doing.
the
Well, it
context.
depends on whether or not you can ask it the right questions. I mean, you can talk to the
Yeah.
smartest person in the world, ask them a stupid question, and you'll feel like you're talking to someone who's an idiot, right? Like it really is. It's input, processing, and output, right? And that's what they are. They're input, processing, output machines. But we have access to intelligence, and I think everyone would agree it's at least mid-level intelligence, right? Like at least across the board.
Oh yeah.
So we've got that. Well, then we have
Mid
memory.
plus.
Yeah.
Mid plus.
I mean, dude, if you in mathematics, it like ranks 12th in the world. In coding, it ranks like 6th or 7th in the world. Like it is a far better coder
If you
than
train me
any.
6 months or a year on mathematics, I'd probably rank, or either of us would
Yes.
rank higher too, if that's all we were doing,
Yes, but we probably wouldn't rank 6th in the entire world for mathematics. I'm not that smart. And
Maybe
they're,
if we
but
started
they're
when we were 6 years old, maybe, or
possibly,
3 years old.
yeah, man, that would have been a horrible life. I've never loved math, and that would have been the end for me. We have access to intelligence. Well, next we need memory, right? In the beginning, when I first started doing this, like I think the first agentic system we ever built had the model had a context window of 8,000 tokens. I mean, basically, you could barely remember 10 paragraphs strung together. Couldn't do hardly anything. And it was a nightmare to work with. But now we've got models with access to like 2 million tokens. And to put that in perspective, if I were to just lay out 2 million tokens in front of a human being and ask them to read it all, it would take them about 40 hours. It's the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy.
Not including falling asleep and taking a nap and getting a headache.
Yeah, 40 straight hours, right? And so
no bathroom breaks, nothing.
Yeah, and these models can instantly understand everything about that 40 hours worth of work. So if I go to Gemini today and I gave it all 3 books of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and then I said, hey, when Tom Bombadil, whatever, and asked some obscure question from the middle of the book, it could tell me about it, right? Even though it had no prior knowledge. Like that's an amazing advantage that they have over human beings, because I would probably have to read Lord of the Rings, I don't know, 20 times before I was able to have perfect recall of everything that was going on. And even then it wouldn't be the same.
Well, that's in that chat session, because there's times when you open a new chat session and ask it the question, it's like, then it can hallucinate sometimes too,
yes.
right?
Well, and that brings up I think they're actually going to solve hallucinations. There was a paper that was written. We should talk about that next. There was a paper that was written. It's really fascinating. And I think that hallucinations are going to be solved in the next, I would guess 3 months, 4 months. If this paper's hypothesis is correct, which it appears to be, and all their testing seems to be leaning that direction. But there are really 3 kinds of memory too. It's not just like contextual memory. You need like short-term memory. It's really like a computer. Like our brains kind of work like a computer. We have our storage.
Or us before a big test, we had very good short-term memory.
Well, exactly. And there's things you don't need to remember, right? Like I don't have to remember the question that you asked me at the beginning of this meeting. Like it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter. Like we already went over what my background is, what my history was, right? I can immediately forget about that question. But there are fragments of that I need to remember so that I don't go and it would be really weird if I just all of a sudden started telling us part of that story again. Like it's completely out of context. It would make no sense, right? So there's fragments. Even though I don't have to remember the question, I do have to remember that I've already told my story, right? I've already given my background.
It's a token of the whole,
right? Yeah. So
narration.
So I see it as like you've got your RAM, right? Which is like, this is what I'm processing with this right now. And actually there's 3 levels of memory with computers, and all the people who are engineering majors are going to be mad at me because I can't remember the lowest level, which is like what it's called. It's not RAM, it's something else. But it's like the thing I'm doing right now. Like I have to remember what I'm doing right now. Then I have to remember what I've been doing in this session. And then I have to also remember what it is I'm doing in general, like my where I work, like where my home is, where I left my car keys, like the things that help me like live life. And so like when you start viewing memory like that and you actually give these really intelligent models access to memory like that, and they know their role in a company, they know their responsibilities, they know like their KPIs or their OKRs, they know who they report to, they know like when they work and when they don't, like they start to like they know these things and it's a part of their kind of living memory, and they know the interactions they're having with maybe prospects they're reaching out to, or they know the tasks that different projects have that they're managing. Like then you start to have a process that can create value. And so there's things like MemGPT is a really, really fascinating project that deals with memory. We're building something custom ourselves because I don't think there really is something on the market that meets all the requirements that at least that we think a model really needs for memory. But we started building systems with MemGPT. It's called something else now. What is MemGPT called? I should look that up. Uh, Although if you Google MemGPT, it'll show up. Like it's an amazing memory tool, right? And there's other things that people are doing. I mean, even things like we've got big knowledge graphs and RAG graph that we use inside our agents so that it can understand billions of tokens and can go in and crawl that and pull in appropriate context into its short-term memory for doing tasks and then put it away and things along those lines. And then tools
Yeah, I think
is go ahead.
I think the AI LLM models, right? We call them foundation models. I think they're good, but I think they're not going to be sustainable over the future because I think there was a paper we talked about in previous one Apple paper over 1,000 iterations. It's not the reasoning breaks down. It seems to me it's like a really good guesser. It's predicting the next sequence of words, right?
Yep.
And building on what you said about the different levels of memory and other things, it's like how good is a person or something at inference about taking random pieces of information and making a decision and producing, and the intelligence comes on taking that information, using it in a material way to create value, right? And I think something else will have to come along to evolve these
Well,
foundational
long
models.
horizon tasks have always, like all models have sucked at long horizon tasks. Like any task, I think when ChatGPT 5 came out, they were leading the pack with long horizon tasks. And if my memory serves me right, which it sometimes doesn't, they could do a task for about 3 hours. And it was amazing because I think the last model that could and stay on track, right? No hallucination, like stay on track, understand what it's doing, like really do a good job. But we're making the model before that was like an hour, at the max. And if you look back a year ago, like we're talking the horizon for a task might be 15 minutes a year ago. What's interesting is Anthropic's new Sonnet 4.5 model, 30 hours. So we went from 5 hours with GPT-5 to 30 hours with Claude Sonnet. And a lot of people, really, really smart people, are working on this problem. So I do think we're going to start seeing long horizon tasks, meaning I go tell my model to go do something and it works on it for 15 hours and then comes back and gives me the result. Dude, one of the tests that they did uh, at Anthropic to test this model was they asked it to rebuild Slack, I think. And it took like 27 hours and it built a fully functioning, fully versioned, like working version of Slack in 27 hours.
Wow.
By itself. Like that's incredible. I mean, that's insane, right? And we're at the beginning of what it looks like to do this. There will come a time when these models can work on tasks for 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. And a lot of it is being able to do memory compression, understanding how you store certain memories, things along those lines. With Ruh, I mean, our whole thing is I want to be able to orchestrate a system where a model can work on a task indefinitely, meaning I say you prospect for my company, go prospect for my company forever. And then you turn it on and it just goes and finds you leads and you never turn it off. There's no attrition to the process. It just runs forever, right? Like that's kind of the holy grail of digital labor and what I'm hoping to crack. And I've got models now or I've got stuff that has been running for months and months, right? Now it's simple. Like I can't do really crazy complex things like go build me all of the Microsoft suite, right? Like that doesn't exist. But for the lower level tasks, like an SDR or a BDR, that's like, hey, I need you to go book appointments for me. here's my ICP. And it goes, okay, give me access to Zoom, or not a Zoom info or Lucia or some place where I can mine data, and give me access to email or a way to spin up inboxes so that I can warm them up, and I can make sure that I can send cold email and it's not going to bounce. Give me access to the Twitter API so I can message people. You give it access to the tools. You give it access to its memory so it understands what it's doing. Here's how you write copy. This is what you're trying to do. This is your calendar link. Here's your memories that you need to do your job. And then you give it a process like that. You can turn it loose and it'll run forever and just go out and find you leads. And when it, maintain 600 active prospects that you're messaging all the time. When one closes, it adds another. When one opts out, it adds another. And it just runs and runs and runs. Like, that's going to fundamentally change how people do business, because we're not going to be worried about finding people who want the value we're creating, because these models will go find them for us.
Cool. Let me ask you the last few questions, rapid fire. So in terms of democratization, how do we make AI more accessible to others that maybe aren't aware about it, or
doing exactly what you're doing? That's why I love people like
Yeah.
you. Like, I just think more people need to be talking about this stuff. And there's far smarter people than me. Like, go find them, talk to them, bring them on the show, and then push this out. Because dude, my mom is starting to learn about AI. My kids are starting to. Like, I hear people, like when I go to church, there's people there that I hear talk about AI. Like, it's starting to happen. The normies are starting to realize that it's here, in more than just like, oh, I used ChatGPT to write a poem for my wife on Valentine's Day.
Yeah, no, dude, on the episode before this, it was Dr. Evelyn Curtis from Final Spark. They're doing human neurons for AI processing using a butterfly. And I mean, like, wow, this is where this is going. It's like, have we entered the matrix in a sense, and that's where we get into the ethical and responsible. How do we make sure so what are your thoughts on how do we make sure we build out in a responsible way? Because there are people out there, they sign a statement of risk that they believe that AI is an existential threat, but they're the same ones building out on AI too,
I mean, I think that let's say that AI isn't going to just kill us all. Let's say that's the case.
Mhm.
Let's say the worst thing that AI does is it takes over everyone's jobs. Everyone's. Let's say it takes over 80% of the people's jobs on planet Earth today. That is a that is a socioeconomic disaster that is unparamounted in all of human history. Like, we've never had that happen, right? You've got, just from a social perspective, you've got men committing suicide because they have no purpose. Let's say we just give everyone money, like, go live, or here's all the things you need. Like, people have no purpose. People, like, crime goes up,
Well, you see that
suicide goes up, depression goes up.
When people do that to people in indigenous groups, they say, hey, you can't no longer be hunter-gatherers. We're going to give you money. Then alcoholism increases, depression,
alcohol, drug use. Like, dude, the world becomes, just socially, the world becomes a terrible place. Economically, like, now no one has money to buy things from. Like, how does it even work, right? Like, we could destroy society.
How do the guys buy the video games to play Call of Duty or whatever game they're playing at this point?
Exactly. Like, yeah, exactly. And so, like, I think if you don't even imagine that it's that somebody bad is going to get a hold of it and engineer some super virus and just wipe everyone out, which is also a possibility, like a real one. Like, if the worst thing that happens is that it starts doing everyone's work for them, like, we have massive problems that we need to figure out how to deal with. Now, what I will say is, I'm going to take the same stance as whoever it was that you're talking about. I don't know how to solve these problems, and nor am I really fascinated with solving them. I think that there are people who are, and I think there are people doing good work in these areas. What I will tell you is, I am going to build the thing that does it, because I'm very interested in that. I think it's a little bit like Charles Dickens says, is the best of times, it was the worst of times. Like, we're coming to this black and white crux where we're gonna actually have to figure out what to do with this. I mean,
That's why I think these last few episodes I realized that's why I have this. The real reason why I have this podcast is to bring out these types of conversations, not just about the technology. It's the ramifications. What do we do to build and make sure people that are aware are not blindsided about what's happening? Because Indian companies are laying off. These offshoring companies are laying off thousands of people because they don't feel like they can upskill into AI. Accenture just came out.
Dude,
10,000 plus people.
Like, my company personally is responsible for laying off thousands and thousands of people. I'll give you one tiny story. We had a company in the Midwest, plastics manufacturing. They hired one of my interns for 3 weeks. They paid like $18,000 for this for this agentic system. Super simple one, easy to build. The day after it was deployed, they were able to fire over 300 employees and save $2.8 million a month in revenue. And it cost them 18 grand to do that. Like, there's no CEO on planet Earth that's going to say no to that. And this was 3 years ago. We built this 3 years ago.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at this when I started this podcast by bringing I was doing a lot of the work, the QA, all this stuff anyways. But I brought it in-house, used some little AI stuff and editing. I say 60% of cost, improve quality, improve time to market, improve creativity, right?
Yeah.
You think I'm going to go hire 100 people? No. I mean, for me as an entrepreneur, that's why I'm in this space. Is like, I'm going to build and I'm going to use the best tools out there. If I can find smart human beings, like I think we had this conversation in the if you can find a smart human being that does really good work, hire them and pay them well.
Yep. Well, and that's where, like, I can tell you the people that work for me today, they work for me because I want them to. Like, I'll probably have an executive assistant for the rest of my life, probably, and I'm going to pay them good, and they'll work for me forever. The truth is, my executive assistant today does very little executive assistant stuff because AI does it all for her, or she runs the AI that does it. And the truth is, I just want to have someone that bugs me about the things that I'm procrastinating, right? It's almost like an accountability layer for Jesse, because he's going to get obsessed about something and forget he has a meeting, and I want her to send me a message, or he's going to whatever, right? Because I'm Jesse. And that's the role that human beings are going to play. We're going to work together because we want to work together, not because we have to work together. And right now, my company very much runs like that.
Yeah. So any concluding thoughts, insights, encouragements to those that are kind of getting the space or struggling? You know, you come from a unique background. It's not about your educational background. It's, because, going back to what you said, it's like, I think the difference between humans is there's people that want to do the minimum and the people that you hire are going to go above and beyond and be proactive, right? But anyway, that's my side note. But any encouragement to those that are kind of getting in the space or trying to build out their companies?
Yeah, I mean, number one, like, now is the time. Like, a lot of people are saying the opposite of this, and I just don't buy it. Like, now is the time to be an entrepreneur. It is easier now than it's ever been. You can do things that you literally could not do before. Like, you can't learn to be a programmer, a marketer, like all of this different stuff. Like, there has never been a better time in human history, if you have a good idea, to get out there and actually do something with it, because it quite literally has never been less expensive or easier. The only barrier to entry today is education. You have to educate yourself.
But the thing is, you can just ask LLM to educate you.
Oh yeah. Well,
you can tell.
Well, you couldn't go to a school. You can't go to college to get this education. Like, it doesn't exist in any of the colleges because it's too new. Whatever they teach you is going to be way too old. But you can educate yourself for what? Honestly, $200 a month for a max plan somewhere, or $20 a month for just a pro plan. You could get an education. You could bring yourself to a place for $200 a month easier. I think it would be easier, or $20 a month that would get you to a place where you could go and build out an entire company. Like, you could do that. It would take you months, because it's like having an assistant or someone working with you every single time. Dude, if my daughter can go and build something that I would have charged $80,000 to build 3 years ago on her own for $60, right? Like, we're talking, how could this not be the best time in human history to be an entrepreneur? It has to be. And so that would be my encouragement, is like, if you have an idea and you're sitting on it and you are someone who would take action, but you haven't because you are not a programmer, or you're not a marketer, or you're not a whatever, instead you're a bus driver, like, go do it now, because you can. It doesn't matter what you are. I mean, if a kid without a high school diploma can go and do what I've done, like, you can easily do whatever you want to do. And now it's easier than ever.
Yeah, you have the 14-year-old, and then you have me, who's in corporate for 30 plus years, trying to launch my business. Now I'm 52, right? And I'm doing CMO. I'm an AI artist. I'm doing podcasting. I'm creating AI videos. It's all happening now. And so where do we? I could talk to you for hours, I think days, on this future of the AI space, but we're coming up on time. So for our listeners, where's the best place for them to learn more about Ruh.ai or connect with you?
If you want to connect with me, you find us. So Ruh.ai is super simple. You can remember it because it was the cheapest 3-letter .ai domain I could find that actually meant something. And so it's ruh.ai. You can go there.
Any specific meaning for your RUH for you?
So it didn't have a meaning before when it got picked. But then I found out later that it means like soul, spirit. It could mean
Oh,
God's
wow.
breath. It's like in Hebrew, it can mean that.
Oh,
In Arabic,
Ruh.ai. Yeah, Ruh.ai is like spirit in
yes.
Hebrew.
And then in like Arabic, it can mean like wind or spirit or something. It basically has that meaning
And
across
in
languages.
Aramaic, it's similar. It's similar in Aramaic too.
So that's the meaning. Not that it actually. I mean, I find it really awesome that it does have that meaning, but it was not
Yeah.
intentional. So yeah, go there. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn. If you do, send me a message that says, "Hey, I heard you and Sanjay on the podcast and wanted to connect." Otherwise, my little AI system that runs my LinkedIn will probably just reject you, and I will never hear about it.
Yeah, please make sure you give me credit, guys.
Yes.
Anyways, I'm not getting anything from it, but at least the way he knows, and that's a good filter.
Yes.
Well, fantastic. Everyone, make sure to check out and connect with Jesse Anglen, learn more about Ruh.ai. Don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and find us on your favorite podcast platforms like Spotify, Apple, etc. Jesse, I've learned quite a bit from this episode. I can't thank you enough for sharing your insights, your journey with us today. I'm your host, Sanjay Kalluvilayil, founder and CEO of Stonehouse Advisors. I hope you gained a wealth of game-changing, real-world insights to grow, transform, and scale to new levels and dimensions leveraging AI. I hope to see you all next time.